Welcome to Ignite Success, where we talk about people, places, and projects that fire us up. I'm your host, Suzie Becker, and I'm here with KDia Brooks of Tradition First Foundation. Hi, KDia.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thank God.
Yes.
And I want to say that right away I asked, what do you do? And you said, well, I am a believer in the Christian faith, and so my job is to empower people to share their faith in a comfortable way.
Right.
Tell me more about this. I need to know.
So it's one of those things. It's people don't feel comfortable sharing their faith these days. They think it's it's politically incorrect and things like that. But a lot of the times, it's not so much about sharing the faith. It's about answering questions. And so apologetics is what our organization focuses on, and we basically teach people the main questions that people have about the Christian faith, whether it's about evil and suffering, the existence of God, free will, moral relativity, things like that, and how to answer those questions so that we draw people in, or we plant seeds so that people can continue their own faith in Christ.
I love the way you expressed that. You said something really important, plant a seed. I think sometimes people assume that when you're engaging in that space, whether it's a discussion about faith or politics, it's an all or nothing.
Right.
That you're going in there and you're going to state your piece or you're going to preach your sermon.
Right.
And either people agree with you or they don't agree with you. And if they do, they're right. And if they don't, they're wrong. But you're saying that this is just a conversation.
Right.
You're affording people the opportunity to ask questions,
Right.
which in a lot of faith spaces is not really welcome.
Right.
So you're exploring this brand of authenticity where people can say, look, I have a belief in God. There's just a lot of questions. And when I've been in traditional spaces, they kind of shut down the questions. You welcome them.
Right.
So what are some of the questions that you get engaged with most, that you feel are people's barrier to entry, where they think they know what you're about, but it turns out that there's more than meets the eye?
Right. I think the main question that I always get is a question regarding moral relativity. We live in a world where everyone's truth is valid, right? You have a truth, I have a truth, Taz has a truth, and that doesn't make it right.
Right.
But when you believe in God, and if He is the moral arbiter, if He is the objective truth, then what He says is truth. And so that is most important, and it's recognizing that God has placed a conscience with us that tells us what is right and what is wrong. It's not subjective, all right? Hurting someone is never subjective. It's not, well, it could be right for that person. No, it's objectively wrong. And so God has put those objectives in us that we feel in our senses of like, that's wrong. Whether it's abuse or lying to someone or stealing something from someone, that's in us. No one has to teach us that we feel when it's wrong. And that's that objectivity that God gives us. And so it's so important for people to recognize that, because we are living in a world where anything can go based off of what someone wants to do.
Right, their truth, like you said, which is, by the way, one of my pet peeves.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes we look at this landscape, and for me, it's easy to say, okay, I don't know what the big picture plan is, but I have faith that there's a higher power with that big picture, and the things are not happening to me, but happening for me.
Right.
And I may not understand, but if I stick with the faith part, I think what affords me that opportunity is being able to ask those questions and get those answers. It's not absolutes, because free will gives us the opportunity to lean into the discomfort of something that's wrong.
Yeah.
And say, even if everyone else is doing it, I had this conversation with someone who reminded me, because they planted the seed.
That's so important. And I think sometimes as believers, you're so excited to tell people about Christ, right? We have that zeal, right? But we have to remember that we're not responsible for converting someone. God draws people to Himself. We plant seeds.
That's beautiful.
That is literally it. And so we can't take it to heart. If you want to tell someone about Christ and they blow you off, it's like, all right, they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting Christ.
Maybe they're not even rejecting that. Maybe they're just not there yet.
They're just not there yet.
So you're coming to meet people where they are.
Right.
And what kind of spaces do you advocate? Do you express? Do you welcome questions in?
And so our focus is mainly our youth. I think more so and less so than your generation, my generation. There's the media is crazy. Okay, there's a lot of stuff going on out there, whether it's political, social, just different ideologies, things like that. The college campuses and the high schoolers. So our organization focuses on one statistic that was done by the Barna Group, which states that 70% of Christian high schoolers, professing Christian high schoolers that enter college, will leave with little to no faith. And so they're Christian in their home, in their environment, where their parents are putting them in the community of their church, and they're putting them in their choir, they're doing all these things. But the moment there's something that's happening when they go into college, and it's mainly, I believe, what we see, and this is the questions that get asked, they go to their first world religions class, or they go to their first class that talks about other faiths and other things, and they start questioning, well, why didn't I learn about these things? Why was I not taught about the Hindu faith or the Islamic faith or all these different faiths where they also claim that theirs is the truth and the way and the life? Why didn't I learn about that? And so it makes them feel like their Christian faith was used as a bubble.
Interesting. Yes, I'm Jewish, and we found people who have the same perspective.
Like, why don't I know about other things? Why did I just get taught this? And there shouldn't be fear about exposing, because if God is true, then he will bring people to himself, right? He will reveal the truth to them. So you shouldn't be afraid to tell people about different faiths, what other people believe, and things like that, because if God put truth in us, it will lead us back to him. And so that's why it's just so important, and I think that's what's happening to our high schoolers. You live your whole life, especially those people that are very devout in the church, you live your whole life knowing this one thing, and then you get to a completely different ecosphere, and you just feel like you got gypped a little bit. Like, why don't I know about any?
Now. Yeah. They're struggling with their psychological safety and being open enough to say, this is what my belief system was before I got here. These are my values, and whether you could be questioning one doesn't mean that you throw away the baby with the bathwater.
Right.
And so I love that you're starting really at the center of where this approach is starting to show its cracks.
Yep.
And so you're giving an opportunity to have the questions, but come and ask them, and hopefully we'll have respectful dialogue and discord where we can grow together. KDia, thank you so much for coming on and sharing.
Yes,
I really appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you so much.
It's a privilege. To find out more about KDia Brooks and her organization, you can find us on dailynewsnetwork.com. I'm your host, Suzie Becker. Stay inspired and inspiring.